I see mkomo wangu good rakakwira mawere muriboere. How you doing, Ruga? How are you? Thank you for coming through. Fatale, how you doing? I hope you're good. Koma Josh, really say. Thank you very much, for coming through. Right. So, like I told you, Tipakamina 1-1. Happiness, Janje. How you doing? I hope you're good. Thank you very much for the follow. I followed you back. It's always nice, to retain, the gesture. When folks, follow you, you got to follow back. That is the cardinal rule. Ever space, you understand? Bus drivers, I hope you're good. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to welcome you to the space. And Honorable Tendai Biti, I'm sending you an invite, to come through as a speaker. Sending you an invite to come through as a speaker. So if you can respond, to that, and then we'll get the show on the road. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, as advertised, I am going to be in conversation with Honorable Tendai Biti, and we are going to be discussing issues to do with the budget, issues to do with governance and accountability, issues to do with political structures, like looking at the 2030 term extension, looking at the opposition as an alternative, regional and international dimensions. That is, if the time allows us. So how we are going to be doing this is I'll engage Honorable Tendai Biti in a conversation. To be just, I say it's a conversation. I want to move away from it being an interview. I want it to be a conversation because I want it to be interacting. So when we've done that, we'll then allow a portion, a section, a portion or a section or a segment where I will be getting questions from the floor. So the listeners who want to pose, questions, get your questions. You might have, if you've got any other questions to do with the budget, that you have already, lined up, please get them ready. But some of the questions, maybe you might be in a position to generate some of those questions during the conversation as Honorable Tendai Biti is making his presentation, right? And then we'll bring in folks. You interact, with him. I will bring in people one at a time. You ask your question, I drop you, he answers. I bring in another one, you ask your question. He answers, and we go on, like that. I want this, and the questions that I am expecting, ladies and gentlemen, they have to be focused on what we would have discussed, today. And I'm appealing, Kuti, as a house rule. Most of you guys, how I do operate as a house rule. Anyone who comes in to disturb, the space, or anyone who comes in to try and I will reserve the right to remove you from the space. We just want to have a serious conversation, and we want us to have an engaging conversation, and being cognizant of the fact that we are here to learn. Some of us, we don't even know what that budget, is all about. We don't even know what it means, to us. So this is an opportunity that we are being given today. We have been at this, we had Chennai on Tuesday, and today we are having Honorable Biti, and we are going to tap into his, experience, his expertise, his knowledge, and I'll give him the space to talk to us about this thing. So that is what we are going to be doing today. So Honorable Tendai Biti, I don't know if you've seen the request, or you can make a request, and then I'll bring you onto the platform. But I need us to start ASAP, because we only got 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. We only got 2 hours, so the program is just going to be 2 hours long. So we'll try by all means to condense everything that we want to be talking about in those 2 hours. And then if there's maybe a follow-up program that we can have, then we have to arrange that with Honorable Tendai Biti, with his permission, of course, and then we have to arrange, that so that, he comes through. Right. Honorable Tendai Biti, welcome to the space. Right. I see you've joined me as a speaker, but I'm not sure if you're listening. I mean, I'm not sure if you're hearing me, or I'm not sure if you're in a position to talk. Honorable Biti, can we just, make sure that, this is okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right. So, can I ask you to greet our listeners, those who are listening to you right now?
Good evening, listeners. Good evening, compatriots. It's good to be here. Shakanaka Kvapano.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I say today, I'm having Honorable Tendai Biti. He needs no much of an introduction. We all know that he's a former finance minister, Zimbabwe, and he's a leading voice in Zimbabwean politics. That is, in no doubt. He has been one of the most outspoken critics of the recently delivered 2028 national budget. He penned an opinion piece in the, I think it's Zim Life. He did pen an opinion piece that was published by Zim Life, and in there he raised various concerns to do a constitutional validity of this budget, issues to do with transparency, and the impact of this budget on the citizens. But beyond talking about these numbers, we know that Mr. Biti, Honorable Tendai Biti, has constantly highlighted issues such as the Mutapa Fund, which he has argued that has evolved into a state within a state, and that's right there kind of undermines accountability and fiscal oversight. So, in this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to explore his perspective on the budget, unpack what it means for Zimbabwe's economic future, and discuss whether opposition politics can be a credible alternative path for the nation going forward, for the future, for the way forward. So over to you, Honorable Tendai Biti. I want to begin by asking you this question. The 2026 national budget, many have described it as lacking transparency and failing to address the everyday struggles of the Zimbabweans. So, from your perspective, what do you see as the most pressing weaknesses in this budget, and how do they reflect the broader challenges facing our economy? Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Uncle Jedza. I think that when one crafts a budget, you are addressing three issues. The first one is that you are addressing the mischief, the challenges that a country will be facing. And so you need to address the mischief. What are those burning questions? What are those burning issues that need to be resolved? Secondly, you are fulfilling the country's developmental thrust. And I've argued in the piece that I wrote for the Zim Life that Section 298 of the Constitution imposes a democratic developmental policy on Zimbabwe public finances. So whether you are like it or not, whether you are neoliberal, whether you are to the right, you are bound to develop a pathway that pursues a broad national development that is anchored on transparency and openness, on equality and on fairness. So that is the key. The third aspect of a budget is the allocative role of the budget, is to allocate scarce resources to the nation. The government and the Minister of Finance oversees the consolidated
Right. I think Honorable Biti, are you still there? I think I've lost you for a minute there. Right. Let me see if I can get him reconnected, ladies and gentlemen. If you are just joining me for the first time, thank you very much, for coming through. We are here with Honorable Tendai Biti. We are unpacking Mthuli Ncube's budget, and in there we are going to be talking about the way forward in terms of the opposition and the alternative, or the alternative in the future. We are looking into the future. So I hope is still connecting. I hope I'll get him back as soon as possible. Right. Okay. Yeah. He is. I think he's facing a challenge with his connection, but I'll try to get him, reconnected, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're fine. I hope I'm finding you well. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you can repost this, it will be very much appreciated. Let me see if I can invite him once again. Let me see if I can invite him once again. We haven't covered much, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're just joining us, Amunakunonoka. We are still, in the beginning. We are still there. We're trying to get this thing, going. So I'm just waiting, see if he can come back. Coutinho, the network sometimes it can be difficult, it can be challenging. But I've sent him a request. Honorable, if you can respond to that request. Thank you very much. Hello, yes, how are you?
Oh, this is typical. Electricity just went off.
Serious?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Is there anything in the budget that that addresses that?
it's just electricity just went off.
Oh dear.
So my internet dropped, and I guess that just summarizes the state of the economy and the state of the state.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me come back, and it means that I have to be very quick there because I'm in Zimbabwe. So I was saying the budget plays an allocative role.
Mhm.
It is the most decisive instrument in respect of which the government plays a Bonapartist role, an intervention role in the management of the country's affairs, and the allocative role of the state, particularly in social services. And in this regard, a Minister of Finance faces a trilemma. And the trilemma that one faces is a trilemma of huge expectations. Number two, the trilemma of huge demands. But number three, the fiscal legroom is simply doesn't exist. So the budget, therefore, essentially represents a balancing act, a prioritization of the priorities in a country, particularly in a development or state like Zimbabwe, in a dominated social formation like Zimbabwe. You are balancing multiple interests: the interests of war veterans, of students, of women, of farmers, of people in the informal sector, of people in the regions, devolution. So you are doing a lot of things. So coming to Zimbabwe, the question that should be asked is, what are those issues that the ordinary average Zimbabwean expected our government to address in this budget? I think the ordinary average person will tell you that they are affected by poverty. 49% of our people are living in extreme poverty. As I wrote yesterday, the number of people living in national extreme poverty doubled up between 2010 and 2011, and these are the number of people that are living below $2.15, a day. The number of people that can't consume the basic calories that are required per day in Zimbabwe are a staggering 49%, meaning that the majority of our people are going on a day-to-day basis without adequate food. So people expected a generous budget. I would have expected an increase in real terms in the budgets of health, the budget of education, BIM, for instance, and in social grants given to our people. But many people would also have expected to see a decisive position on a durable macroeconomic stability, the exchange rate, for instance, fiscal discipline, for instance. People would have expected the budget to address the elephant in the living room, the issue of corruption, the issue of cartels, which I can speak for an entire day on. People would have expected to see a budget that addresses the gross capital formation in our country, the state of our roads, the state of our dams, the state of electricity. Ironically, as I was speaking to you, power went off. We are generating less than 1,000 megawatts when we require 4,000 megawatts, and we've installed capacity of 2,000 megawatts. People would have expected a reduction and review of the taxation regime. Zimbabweans are over taxed, and before the rebasing of our economy, the tax revenues contributed to 32% of GDP, when an average African country like Zimbabwe, the contribution should be around 16%. So we are doubly taxed. People expected a total removal of the IMMT tax, a reduction in the levels of VAT, an increase in tax-free credits and the tax-free threshold of employees, particularly when Mthuli Ncube is given free lunch to the bosses. Corporate tax is going to be reduced to 15 percent. People expected to see an overhaul of the country's regulatory framework. Zimbabwe is over-regulated. Zimbabwe is over-legislated. People expected to see a response to that. People expected to see a reform and restructuring of the banking sector. You can't have a banking sector that doesn't offer savings accounts. You can't have an economy that doesn't have cheap money and cheap credit. In any other country, there's higher purchase, there are mortgage finances. These things don't exist in Zimbabwe. Any decent country requires savings that are at least 25% of GDP. China, the second largest economy in the world, has got savings that are 50% of GDP. We don't have savings in Zimbabwe. And where you have got the banking sector making 50% to 60% of its income from non-interest income, from bank charges, then that country is fundamentally wrong. Pensioners expected relief from the billions and billions of dollars that they've lost through multiple currency changes since 2006. And pensioners are living from hand to mouth. Farmers expected some definitive answer, some definitive program from the handouts that they receive. So you see that the budget doesn't address virtually and literally all the above. But most importantly, and I didn't write about this, the budget itself is not credible. And I'll just give you a few examples of the credibility. You see, before you go to the political issues I was talking about, the budget itself must be a sound document from a technical point of view. Now, I'll illustrate why this is not a credible budget from a technical point of view. So I start off with, what exchange rate is this budget using? The budget has celebrated the fact that the exchange rate is stabilized at around 1:26. You see that being celebrated in the budget. So you then ask, what exchange rate does this budget actually use? Now, if you go into the budget, you will see that they're expecting to collect revenue in ZiG terms of 225,669 billion dollars. which translates to US $7.9 billion. If you interpose 7.9 billion US dollars to 225.669 billion ZiG, it will give you an exchange rate of 1:35. So, in other words, a government that is celebrating a stable exchange rate of 1:26 is actually employing an exchange rate of 1:35.
35.
So before you have started, the government itself has thrown a vote of no confidence in its own proclaimed stability exchange rate of 1:26. That shows lack of confidence. That shows lack of credibility. Another example I want to give is the rate of inflation. The government says the rate of inflation will be around 12% and 13% for next year. And in fact, Minister Mthuli predicts that by the end of next year, inflation in Zimbabwe will be single-digit inflation. We test that now. We test that now with his own figures. So, if you look at the figures, revenue is expected to grow to 9.5. In fact, I'll start with the expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
The expenditure for 2025 is US $8.1 billion.
Right.
It is expected to increase to US $9.5 billion.
Right.
The percentage increase is 17.28%.
Mm-hmm.
So the government's unanticipated growth is 17.28%. Now, here's the challenge. The challenge is that the anticipated growth rate for next year is 5%. The anticipated growth rate for this year, 2025, is 6%. 6.6%. I'll come to that figure. So if you are saying that economic growth rate next year is 5%, your revenue figures should not be above that. Secondly, they should not be above the rate of inflation of 12%. Here, I've just demonstrated that it's actually 17.28%. So you then ask, where is this money going to come from, and on what basis? When you've anchored your growth rate at 5% in 2026, for 2025, there's an elementary carelessness. If you read the small budget speech, in the small budget speech, the growth rate is projected to be 6%. If you read the actual main document, the growth rate is expected to be 6.6%. So elementary carelessness. Then another elementary carelessness is on revenue measures. So revenue measures are contained in the finance bill. Revenue measures are contained in the finance bill. So in the finance bill, that's where you see the tax proposals. Now, there are certain tax proposals that are not in the finance bill. Because the finance bill, the minister must tell the government printers at least 10 hours before the budget is presented on the 27th of November. So you must tell the government printers. But the budget, we used to sleep at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. when you are presenting the budget at 3 a.m. the following day, because you always make changes. So now there are certain tax proposals that are being made in the budget statement that are not contained in the revenue proposals. So, for instance, the proposal to increase VAT to 15.5% from 15% is actually not contained in the finance bill. The proposal to tax the e-commerce and digital platforms like TikTok, like Starlink, is also not in the finance bill. but it's in the budget statement. What does this reflect? It reflects lack of credibility. It reflects a carelessness. It reflects lackadaisicness. It reflects indifference. So I mention these things just to show what kind of government that we're dealing with. But for me, the most glaring omission is the lack of an ideological anchor on this budget, the vacuousness. If you are on the right, and Mthuli is neoliberal, you seek for a small government. You look for you hate taxes. You understand? But this budget is the opposite. But we know he doesn't like our people. This budget is so anti-people. So it exposes such bare vacuousness, such a lack of anger. And which is why I said in my Zim Live article that it is not loyal to Section 298 of the Constitution, because Section 298 of the Constitution pins our financial management and our financial management policy to an ideology, the ideology of a developmental state. Whether we did that consciously or subconsciously, I don't know, but that is the product you have in Section 298 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe.
Right. Oof. That is not quite loaded. You know what? There's a part of your presentation. There's a part of this budget which we tried. I mean, I've discussed this with with other people before, and this is to do with our GDP. You spoke about it. This GDP growth rate of 6.6% we have been grappling with that concept in some of the spaces that we've had in terms of what a GDP means, right? But when we are looking at the GDP in Zimbabwe, the figures that are being banded about, I think you have actually poured scorn on this figure, and you're saying that our GDP we are not a $52 billion economy. Can you give us an explanation of what a GDP is? And can you give us your understanding of what this government is doing and what it has done to get us to this $52 billion economy?
Right. So economics is quantitative. Economics is empirical. It works on data. And economics is concerned with the measurement of output. What are you producing? What are you producing? So a farmer, for instance, will know his output. A farmer will know that I'll plant 1 hectare of maize, for instance. On this 1 hectare, I expect to get maybe 7 tons. So his yield is 7 tons per hectare. And if the price of maize is $300 per ton, that farmer knows that he has 2,100. 7 times 3 is 21. So that's output. That's output. So a country is producing the economy. And the country has different baskets of wealth. There is manufacturing, there is farming, there is mining, there is tourism, there is construction, there is education, there is consumption, supermarkets, and so forth. There is health, hospitals, and money that So economists then aggregate these outputs and come up with a figure and a thing called nominal GDP. So nominal GDP is the quantitative measurement of a country's output. This GDP figure is under threat from economists who say it's not a fair reflection of the true wealth of a country. What about happiness, for instance? What about people's freedom? What about the quality of life of people? So you are telling me, for instance, that I'm a $52 billion, but if I didn't have solar energy in my house, I wouldn't have been having this conversation. What about that? What about potholes?
And they tell us the gross national, income is, we are looking at US 3.2.
Yes. So so generally it's now understood, it's now agreed by top economists and my friend from Columbia University, Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel Prize Nobel economist, is one of those leading global economists that have criticized and have written about the fact that we need a new instrument of measurement. But let's stick to GDP, because we haven't found a better,
because that is what is there. Yes.
Yeah, a better. So again, one of the critics of GDP, for instance, it doesn't measure, for instance, inflation. So you can have your GDP of 20 billion. If inflation is 500 billion% like it was in 2008, it's meaningless, because inflation is stealing people's lives. You can have great GDP, but you are in a war. So in Russia now and Ukraine, they're actually producing. In fact, the Russian economy has been doing so well during the 4 years of war with Ukraine. But an average Russian will tell you that I'm not happy, I'm not reading newspapers, I'm afraid to get bombed, I'm afraid of drones. So these are some of the limitations and weaknesses of GDP as a measurement of wealth, as a measurement of output. But let's accept that.
Right. Yes.
So generally, our GDP has been very small. In 1980, it was 7 billion US dollars. It was the same size of Kenya. It was slightly above Zambia. Zambia was $4 billion. But by 2019, Kenya was a 264 billion economy. Zambia was in its 40 billion. And we were around $19 billion. Kenya right now is now the 12th largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, with foreign currency reserves of around $12 billion. And Zimbabwe has got foreign currency reserves that are below $1 billion.
Right.
Yeah. So in 2019, our GDP was around $20 billion.
20 billion, yes.
$20 billion. In 2021, 2022, they are now talking of $22 billion to $25 billion. Right. In 2024, so they claim, Zimstad carried out a rebasing of the economy.
Yes.
So when you rebase, you are doing two things. You are quantitatively measuring output. You are also introducing a new base year. Every economy has got a base year. In other words, a year you are starting from.
Right.
So up until 2009, we're starting from 1980. So when we say 5% growth rate, we are saying 5% growth rate of the previous year, starting from 1980.
Right.
So in 2009, 2010, when I was in government, we couldn't use 1980 because 1980 had been vandalized by the years of hyperinflation from 2004 to 2008.
Absolutely.
So we then rebased the economy and started in 2009.
2009, right.
Because in 2009, we began a new narrative, a narrative of dollarization. So we have been using 2009 as a base year. So what they then do now, published in July 2025, in the midterm statement of July 2025.
2025, yes.
They suddenly tell us that we rebased, and our base year is now 2023.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the reasons given, when you did it, we had reasons of the hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation. So economics no longer meant anything. When you have hyperinflation of 500 billion%, it no longer makes sense.
Absolutely. So this time around, what was the reason?
They don't explain. And remember, this was not a public process. They just announced. So they
Because I
then start
remember,
getting-
them saying that is because we haven't captured enough of the informal market. This is why we are doing this.
but so what they tell us now is that the GDP in 2023, the best year, is now 44.5 billion.
Mm.
In 2024, it's now 45.7 billion.
Mm.
In 2025, because we have a growth rate of 6%,
6.6.
it's now 52.4 billion.
Quantitatively, how are these figures? How do we arrive at these figures?
So they say we examined the economy, and we found out that we've got about 229,000 enterprises in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't tell us from what level, how much did we have in 2019.
Right.
They then also tell us now that, but 71%. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go on.
Yeah. They then
71%?
Yeah. 71% of these 229,000 industries are actually in the informal sector.
Right. 71%.
71%. Now that should send alarm bells to you.
So are we talking about people that sell madomasi, vegetable, all my sweets, all these economic activities? Are these the industries that they're talking about?
You and I know the informal sector.
Yes.
It is an unregistered enterprise that doesn't have a VAT number, that doesn't have a ZIMRA TIN number, that operates on the basis of presumptive taxes. For instance, a hairdresser. For instance, our compatriots who are making furniture in Glenview.
Right.
For instance, our compatriots who are running Mushikashika and combis. So you then have to say, how does 71% of how does this 1% located in the informal sector then explain for 100% increase in GDP from a $20 billion in 2019 to 45
in 2024?
In 2023.
23, yes.
And then they don't create a website. Zimstats doesn't create a website that says, these are our findings, these are the companies.
They're just throwing figures.
And then, uncritically, none of the bodies that have got capacity of actually commenting on the authenticity, the validity, the legitimacy of the claims of GDP have come forward to question. This includes the IMF, this includes the African Development Bank, this includes the World Bank.
Right.
And also,
but I'm told that the IMF kind of questioned these figures here. Is that true?
If you look at the Article 4, a report of the IMF that was published in October of 2025, a few months ago, they ignore the rebased figures. They use the old figures.
Right. So where does the growth rate now stand if they are using the old figures? Are we still at 6.6%?
So separate growth rate from the size of the economy.
Okay.
The growth rate remains the same, 5%, whether you have got 20 billion or whether you have got 45 billion.
Right. No, I hear you.
The growth rate is simply a measurement of the economy from what
Economic
it was
activity.
last year to now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear you there.
But the question becomes critical. Is it 6% on a rat or it's 6% on an elephant?
Yeah,
And
this
the
one
government
is
has re-engineered the rate that the Zimbabwean economy was to make it into an elephant of $52 billion.
and yet it's a rat.
And Zimbabweans have got a legitimate question. How does a rat mutate into an elephant? But you see, if the economy becomes an elephant, the citizen doesn't have to be told.
Absolutely, yes.
The citizen feels it.
It shows on the ground.
So if you land in Cape Town, and I was in Cape Town to see my daughter this weekend, you know it's a big economy.
Right.
If you land in Joburg at OR International Airport, you know it's a big economy because the next thing you are in a multi-million-dollar train that is taking you to Santo.
Absolutely.
And there's no pothole. You drive from Joburg to Durban, it's 4 lanes this way, 4 lanes
that way.
Yeah. Now, so I ask the question, if you take my Ezra in Chigamakuni,
Yes.
if you take my Peter in Cholocho, if you take my Dube in Chidayen's village, Chendampuya, does she feel that her gross national income is US $3,200?
Yeah.
Because my Ezra knows that she is not earning US $1.25 a day.
Yes, that is what she's living on.
You understand? And when you say we are now 3,200, you are now saying we are bigger than Kenya, for instance.
Oh dear.
We are bigger than Botswana. But any Zimbabwean will tell you that we're not bigger than Botswana. That's why there's so many of us in Botswana, in Cameroon. So why did they engineer these figures? They engineered these figures because they want to meet the self-set target of Mr. Mnangagwa that says Zimbabwe will be an upper middle income country by 2030. And to be an upper middle income country, you have to have gross national income of 4,496 to 13,900. That's the bracket.
Wow.
So if we are on 3,200, they are very close.
We are almost there.
Yeah. So in simple terms, they are cooking figures in order to meet the political illusion of a middle income country.
Right. Whilst, Mr. Biti, whilst we are on these weaknesses and on that aspect, can you talk to me about how these shortcomings that you've highlighted, how do they connect to the broader governance issues such as corruption, accountability, and the management of public funds? And what reforms you think should be essential to restore confidence in Zimbabwe's economic planning? And on that note, if you can then talk to me about what you would have done, if you are in Mthuli Ncube's sitting right now.
So when you rebase now, when you say you're an elephant, when you're a rat, and they saw a rat for that matter, I saw a rat for that matter.
That's corruption.
Yeah. You see, as I said, economics is quantitative. So there are certain ratios that technically show the health of a country. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah. So ratios that show the health of a country, including the percentage of revenue to GDP. As I said, if your revenue to GDP is anything above 30%, you are over reliant on taxation. So it shows that there's something wrong there. Your people are overtaxed.
Absolutely.
But when you increase the GDP now and it becomes an elephant, it means that your revenues are now being applied against the bigger percent and they are now lowered.
Aha.
So our revenues, so the percentage is lower. One of the critical measurement of a country's health is debt to GDP.
Mm.
So any debt to GDP ratio of above 60% is unhealthy, is unsustainable.
Right.
So our debt is around $23 billion.
23
billion as a percentage of $20 billion in 2019 is about 110%. That's unhealthy.
Right. And
But
what is this supposed to be?
Hello?
What is a healthy figure? What is a healthy, percentage?
A healthy percentage is below 50%.
Right. Okay.
The best one would be 30%.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah. So when you take that $23 billion now as a percentage of $52.4 billion, it's now below 50%.
Ah.
So technically we are now healthy.
Ah. So they're killing, they're killing so many birds with one stone.
Exactly. But the lie, guy, is a lie.
A lie is a lie, yes.
And the lie has short legs because when you read the budget itself, they are complaining of debt unsustainability. They are saying we can't pay these debts. So in the last 2 years, they've paid almost $1 billion in debt repayment. They're saying we can't afford that. And of course, they can't afford that. Because if your revenues are $6 billion and you're paying $1 billion, then you've got a problem.
Absolutely.
So they are now caught out now on the demand side. Because when they make these payments, they are not consistent with the elephant, they are consistent with the rat that the economy is. So they are then caught in flagranto, as we say in Latin. They are caught with their pants down, they're exposed.
They're all over.
So that's the challenge that they have now, is that there's a credibility gap in their documents. And one of the things that is very disturbing, if you read this budget, it's expressed in Zig. So you have to take a calculator and say, how much is this in US dollars? And when you put it in US dollars, the incredulousness then is exposed. But you ask me, what are those things that needs to be done?
To be done, yes.
Yes, there are transitional issues. Then there are long-term issues.
Right.
So the first and obvious one is that we need credibility in our data. So quite clearly, we have to revisit the rebasing of 2024 and 2025. It doesn't benefit us at all. It doesn't benefit us at all. And let me explain why it doesn't benefit us. We have got an external debt of almost $15 billion. We have arrears of about $7 billion. We owe the World Bank $2 billion US dollars. We owe the African Development Bank around $800 million. We owe the Paris Club of Lenders around $5 billion. We owe the African Import and Export Bank probably around $2 billion.
Right.
We owe the Chinese anything between $4 billion and $6 billion. Those figures keep on floating like playing tennis with a continuously changing baseline.
Right.
So we have no capacity of repaying this debt, which is why the government has embarked on this high-level debt a dialogue.
Okay.
The high-level debt strategy is basically...
Is this the one that has got, is this the one that has got the former Mozambican president? What's his name?
Chisano, and the
Yes.
president of the African Development Bank, former President Adesina. I haven't seen the new president accepting to help Zimbabwe. We will see.
Right.
Yeah, but you are right. It is that program that was launched by President Mugabe, by President Mnangagwa at the colorful ceremony 3 years ago at the Harare Sheraton.
All right, yes.
Now, when countries are in debt distress, they depend on the forgiveness and debt cancellation by multilateral institutions in a process called HIPIC or some other euphemism. Hello?
This is what you're talking about.
But happens on certain terms.
Right.
On certain conditionality.
That are imposed by those that are willing to forgive.
Yeah, but this is standard. This has been happening since the Glen Eagle Summit of 2005.
All right.
So it's a precedent. It's everyone has gone through it in Nigeria, Ghana, and so forth. In fact, the challenge with Africa right now is that debt is like a drug. Debt is like alcoholism. Many of the countries who were cleared by the first round of HIPIC have gone back to bad habits.
They are back to square one.
They're back to square zero. So we've got a new wave. We've got a new wave of debt. Certain countries somewhere write a PhD on this new wave of debt, but that's a story for another day. So right. I come to this debt wave. So HIPIC essentially involves two things. You must show and demonstrate that you can manage your economy well and that you are not going to fall into debt distress again. So you need to have a program with the IMF.
Okay.
That program is called a staff monitored program, an SMP.
We have had those, I remember having those.
We've had about 6 of those. We've all failed them.
Right.
And right now, if you look at the Article 4 report, the IMF is not talking about a staff monitored program. However, if you look at the World Bank Outlook that was released on the 1st of December, 2 days ago, the World Bank is speaking on behalf of the IMF, and they are hoping that in the first quarter of next year, Zimbabwe can have an IMF program, a staff monitored program. But if you look at the Article 4 team, the IMF has serious reservations about corruption. The IMF has got serious reservations about the Mutapa Fund. The IMF has got serious reservations about Zimbabwe's intended return to de-dollarization to the monocurrency.
Right.
So I'll be surprised if the IMF quickly embraces a staff monitored program, because they know that Zimbabwe will fail because of these structural issues. Over expenditure, lack of fiscal discipline, debt that is being hidden in treasury bills, a treasury that is now making direct payments, these arrears, including the $1.7 billion that was an eighth of invalidated expenditure. But let me go back to how it's not in our best interest to be a high middle income country.
Right.
I want to go back to that.
So I mean, if it is a desired position for him, in our best interest, it's not.
I'm going to explain.
Right. Go on.
I'm going to explain. Firstly, to be called high income or low income is just a label.
Just talk.
It's just talk. It means nothing.
Right.
We have to earn the right to be called a middle income or upper income. We have to develop our economy. We have to grow our economy. It has to be inclusive. So we can't be called high income when
or upper middle income when 95% of our people are unemployed. When 4 in 5 graduates can't find jobs. When engineers are selling airtime at Runare House in Zimbabwe. We can't be called middle income when 70% of our people have no access to covered ablution facilities. They still use a wall that they share with their animals in places like Chendambuya, Cholocho, and the Murewa, and the Chigamakuni village.
Right.
Yeah. So now, with the debt relief now, the way debt relief works is that you get a staff monitored program. You yourself, you set yourself quantitative and qualitative targets, which you agree with the IMF.
Right. These are the ones that you come up with you yourself. And then you agree.
They're not forced upon you. In the olden days, they used to set them up.
So if we are failing this, are we over promising them to say, okay, this we can do, and yet we're no capacity of doing that?
No, look, the Minister of Finance will be genuine, but he's not the boss.
All right.
You understand? So he can say, yes, I will not spend more than, I will not have a budget deficit of more than 3% of GDP, but he's told buy cars.
Buy cars. There's
go and
there's
put
Tungwarara.
There's
Tungwarara out there. There's Tungwarara out there who wants to move around with 500,000.
He's told pay $1.9 billion from Mutapa to Kudatagire.
Yes. Right.
So when you meet these quantitative and qualitative targets, these quantitative and qualitative targets are to create a track record. These quantitative and qualitative targets are to show that if your debt is cancelled, if your debt is forgiven, you won't go back to the old days. You won't go back in a drunken stupor. But
it's like you've gone to a rehab when you say, okay, I'm coming out, I'm now clean, I'm never going to go back.
Yes. So you've got an addict, you've got a drug addict, so they are testing you.
Right.
Some have got sex addicts, they are testing you. So if you're a drug addict, they are leaving a bottle of whiskey by your side. And they're saying, they're coming to your room the following morning and say, my brother.
What happened there?
What happened there?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's an SMP. So, but the critical thing about debt forgiveness is that you must be poor.
Right.
Because if you are rich, you must pay your debt using your own resources.
Exactly.
You understand? So debt relief is only available to low-income countries.
To those who are poor.
So in other words, those whose gross national income is below 1,200. So if you cook your figures and push your gross national income to 3,200, you are basically saying we are not poor. And the World Bank, the Americans, the British, the Paris Club of Lenders will say, but pay your debt.
So we are basically shooting ourselves in the boot. We are on our way to shooting ourselves in the boot.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot.
Wow.
So the World Bank is basically saying debt relief is available to those that are poor and ugly. I'm an ugly black man. What Zimbabwe is trying to do is to put lipstick and mascara on the ugly man called Tendai Biti and say, yes, a slay queen. He qualifies to be a woman. Yes, his Instagram account.
Wow.
But you and I know you can't put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, you can't.
So they are shooting themselves in the foot in order to achieve a political. So instead of saying we want to be an upper middle income country, all that this regime needed is to say we want to build a strong, robust developmental state by 2030.
By 2030, yes.
Full employment, and you leave it like that.
You don't say much.
You don't say much. You leave it like that. But once you then put a quantitative target with the micro and macro implications, you are committing harikiri, as the Japanese will call it.
Absolutely.
So it's ill thought, it's madness, it's vacuous, it's reflective of lack of craft competence. Hazvina kurongeka. Hazvina kurongeka kana.
Is okay? So what we have spoken about so far. There's nothing positive outside of that. I want us to briefly briefly. Okay.
So there is a gold boom at the present moment.
Okay.
The price of gold has exceeded $4,000 an ounce.
Mm.
And as long as the geopolitical infrastructure of the world remains uncertain, the war in Russia and Ukraine, the genocide in the Middle East, the fun and games between China and Taiwan.
Taiwan, yes.
The uncertain situation in the United States of America, the growth of nationalism, the growth of fake news, the growth of populism. As long as the world remains unsteady, as long as the world continues to sleepwalk into a third world war, gold becomes a safe haven for investment.
Right.
Meaning that the price of gold will go up.
Will continue going up.
Now, here's the thing. Artisanal miners are producing gold in Zimbabwe. 65% of the gold being produced in this country is being produced by artisanal miners.
Right.
And this year, they could easily get to 47 tons. We've never done that. We've always limped around 12 tons, 13 tons, 15 tons. So if you get to, and so gold has become important, it's now 70% of all export earnings for foreign currency.
Right.
So, but this gold boom, we are not harvesting it.
Right.
Just like the diamond boom, we didn't harvest it. No one knows where the money went. So this boom is not permanent. There will be elections in America in 2028. There will be a new president in America in 2028 who can go back to the old multilateral order that we all knew what America was about. And Europe is reorganizing. France and Germany are taking strong position against the Putin's impunity. So the gold boom, we might miss the gold boom.
Right.
There's also something that is happening in our tobacco. Over 300 million kilograms was produced. Average price 320, 350. Income of over $1 billion. But that is also missing us. Is it transforming the country? Or the money is going to consumerism? So if you look at the results, for instance, of the INSCO Simbisa group, their revenues are over $1 billion. So Chicken Inn is giving you $1 billion.
Right.
Where is that money coming from? What is fueling Chicken Inn? What is fueling KFC? It's the informal sector.
Right.
So we need to transform this economy. We need to alter the accumulation model.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I saying? I'm saying there are pockets of the economy that are doing well that need to be harvested. And we're not doing that.
Right.
What are we doing? We are engaging in most obscene consumerism. All these vehicles that you are seeing being donated and bought are being bought by Treasury. It's not fed so and so. That money is coming from the Treasury.
And they're only benefiting the affiliates. I've seen today
why should we buy GD6s instead of building factories?
What?
Instead of improving our hospitals.
Right.
So this class of 2017, which is a class founded on blatant bohemian consumerism, is spending away in first-class business tickets to Dubai. The little green shoots of our economy, founded in tobacco, founded in gold, and also diaspora remittances. Diaspora remittances are 2.7 billion US dollars. You guys are sending money at home.
Right.
But it's not transforming the country because we've got a government that is kaput, a government that is kleptocratic, a kakistocracy. So instead of using this bubble economy, I call it a bubble economy, to make significant improvements to the lives of our people, we are buying Lamborghinis, whatever, those Bentleys. Are we crazy? If you go to Sam Levis Village and Highlands Park, you will see these cars. One day I was going to work on Enterprise Road. I hear a funny sound like I'm at a Formula One. I turn, there's a red car. I look at it, it's a Maserati. Why would anyone normal drive a Maserati in Zimbabwe?
In Port Road. Right.
And somebody has got 4, 5, 6 Bentleys, same color. What are you trying to do?
anyway, honorable, our time is, you know what, with you we can talk, for the whole day. Our time, is fast moving. But yes, I wanted, to have a highlight of the positives, which, you have, given, right there in terms of, the God. But I want us to then pivot onto, I want us to pivot onto something here. But there's a question on governance issues. And we've got, the concentration of power in the Mutapa Fund. Can you explain to us, what is going on here? Does this budget reflect that, those deeper governance issues? Quickly on that Mutapa Fund thing.
Yeah, it's more than Mutapa. I'll come to Mutapa. As
Right.
I have written for Zim Live, the budget entrenches corruption. So you have a budget that confesses to US $1.2 billion owed to arrears. You have an auditor general who confirms that 70% of payments are being made directly by Treasury, around $2 billion US.
Right.
Then you have got this new revelation that there's US $1.7 billion of invalidated expenditure beyond the 1.2 billion. So money that was spent that was not budgeted for on roads, on dams, and so forth, which confirms that there's a parallel government somewhere. But this parallel government, we know it has already existed because in the past 7 years, they've come up with 2 financial adjustment bills. In 2015, in 2018, 2019, they came up with a financial adjustment bill of $110 billion for money spent between 2015 and 2018. Then they came with the second financial adjustment bill of about around 106 billion RTGS dollars. Now you've got this $1.7 billion. And as the figures I always give, in 2017, $2.7 billion was spent outside the budget. Of that $2.7 billion, $1.5 billion was stolen on 26 December 2017. For Christ's sake, Jedza, who still was on Christmas Day? 2018, $3.5 billion. Hello?
No, I'm still here. I'm listening.
2019, $6.6 billion. 20, they chased me away from the Public Accounts Committee, but we now know that every year they've been stealing around $2 billion that is not budgeted for. Now on their own, without prompting by the Auditor General, they've said we've got $1.7 billion invalidated. So you've got the tragedy, you've got the tragedy of the Ministry of Finance, which is a regulatory ministry that oversees other ministries in terms of the power that they have in terms of the Public Finance Management Act.
Right.
They are a gatekeeping ministry. But they are now at the epicenter of looting. George Guamatanga is at the epicenter of looting directly through treasury. So you have got the tragedy in Zimbabwe of the gatekeeper being the gatecrasher,
being the
looter. And the situation is not helped thanks to Chabangu that we don't have a parliament. By a few individuals like my sister Gladys Kachwai and others, very few.
Hey.
So we are in problems, which is why spaces like yours become so important.
Oh, thank you.
Because
at
least people can speak out.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to offer this space.
Writing editorial opinions becomes so critical. Because at least we are documenting these things. We are documenting, these things. Which brings me to Mutapa Fund.
Yes.
So we had the Sovereign Wealth Act of Zimbabwe that was enacted in 2014. The idea of a sovereign wealth is very noble. The idea of a sovereign wealth fund is very noble. Sovereign wealth funds are basically savings accounts for future generations. So resource-rich countries, countries with minerals, with oil, will create this sovereign wealth fund to be used by future generations, 100 years away, because the resources are finite. You can run out of oil, you can run out of gold. And the biggest sovereign wealth fund in the world is that of Norway, because it has fantastic reserves of oil in the North Sea. So Zimbabwe is commodity rich. It has got 63 minerals. So the idea of a sovereign wealth fund was to say we create a sovereign wealth fund that we deposit and use these funds for future generations. And it's also important because it's a savings account, meaning that banks and institutions can borrow it to finance mortgages and hire purchases for people in the present, in the now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a progressive idea.
Right.
2 years ago, through a presidential decree, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is changed. It's now called the Mutapa Fund.
The Mutapa Fund, yes.
It now basically becomes an asset management company that houses the shares of certain state-owned enterprises and parastatals.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, every parastatal is now there. Zimbabwe, the National Railways of Zimbabwe, Wange, I said ZESA, PTC, Net1, ZMDC, and so forth.
If I may ask, what is the reason for, what was the reason for establishing this and putting all these parastatals under this Mutapa Fund?
To loot.
Right.
So here's the thing now. This economy, the Rhodesian economy, the Zimbabwean economy,
Mm-hmm.
was built on state capitalism, was built on strong state-owned institutions playing a Bonapartist role in the economy. Things like the Dairy Marketing Board, things like the GMP,
Mm-hmm.
things like the Cotton Marketing Board, things like the National Railway
Marketing Board, yes. Yes.
So these these bodies controlled 63% of the country's GDP. Your GMP, your Cotton Market Board, your Cold Storage Commission, your Dairy Board. You know this, you grew up under this. If your dad or uncle worked for the GMP, Muribo, for DMB, Muribo, for Cold Storage Commission, Muribo. Cold Storage Commission used to sell to the European Union 90,000 metric tons of beef.
Of beef,
you
yes.
Know that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
So these were super companies. So they are now taken and housed in Mutapa Fund. They are no longer accountable to line ministries.
And the parliamentary oversight has been taken away.
Parliamentary oversight has been taken away. Procurement authorities have been taken away. And in the present budget, their dividends are tax-free. There's no capital gains tax. There's nothing at all. Nothing, no accountability at all.
Only Mangujra and his boss.
And one of the most disturbing things, we are now being told that dividends paid out to its shareholders are tax-free, meaning that there are unknown private shareholders in the Mutapa Fund other than the government. Because why would you say they are tax-free when the government doesn't pay tax anyway?
Doesn't pay, yes,
but
exactly.
Once you put that in your finance bill, it means that there are certain individuals now.
Like Tagwire.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Right.
So what does it mean? What it means is that a coup has happened in Zimbabwe. Public assets that contributed 63% of Zimbabwe have now suddenly been privatized under the Mutapa Fund. And someone now owns the Mutapa Fund, but Parliament is powerless and no one can conduct public scrutiny of this. Which is why they can wake up one morning as they did in 2024 and say, we are paying $1.9 billion to Kuda Tagwire. And we ask why. They say, no, Mutapa Fund has taken over Kuvimba. And Kuda owned 35% of Kuvimba.
35%.
So we are paying him $1.9 billion, which is equivalent to 35%.
And how did they arrive at that figure?
It means the market capitalization of Kuvimba is around $6 billion. But is there an asset in Zimbabwe that is worth $6 billion? Of course, the answer is no. And more so when we know that 2 years before, in 2020, Mutapa had said itself that its market capitalization was $300 million. So how does $300 million?
How did it get
graduate to
suddenly become $1.9
billion? But not only that, let's unpack Kuvimba. What is Kuvimba? Kuvimba basically has taken over mines that we used to be owned by ZMDC. So the government has paid $1.9 billion for assets that it actually owned.
Oh dear.
Only in Zimbabwe. Only in Zimbabwe. Only in Zimbabwe. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Ridiculous on steroids.
You can say that again. That's why I always ask Mutorirwe.
Wow.
Iguka. Inyaope.
Right. Right. Thank you very much for that. Right. Okay, let us pivot, into this. We've spoken about the budget at length, and we are now running out of time. I'm just getting carried away here because listening to you speak, it's like I don't know how I can describe that. But anyway, so many Zimbabweans, people have been asking. I've done countless shows here. People have been asking whether the opposition can present a credible alternative, an alternative vision. So, in your view, what role should the opposition politics play in offering practical solutions and a clear way forward, for the country? And bearing in mind this issue of the 2030 term, you have made your presentation, you've made your position known, and the question that follows after to that is, what risk does a 2030 extension pose for economic stability and democratic norms in Zimbabwe?
Look, there are three things. The first one is that 3 million of us on the 21st of March 2013 voted in a referendum to accept a constitution, which in my respective view, if you were to ask me what is the most important provision in that constitution, I'll tell you it's section 328, the term limits. I would say it's section 95, it's section 142, the term limits. Why are term limits important? In the context of Zimbabwe, we lived through the dangers of not having term limits. We had President Mugabe, may his soul rest in peace, who could hardly go to the bathroom on his own, but continuing to hold office. So we said it's very important that a country renews itself. And that what keeps modern societies alive and vibrant is the capacity of these states to regenerate. And you can only regenerate through the agency of individuals, supported by strong institutions. So you must have a state that guarantees that no matter how good people are, no matter how intelligent they are, no matter how loved they are by people, they must come, they must go. So we said we'll give you one term of 5 years. But kana wazogonawo tokupawo sign ndakambotamba chabuta.
Yes.
Sign, but sign here 5 years. In terms of office, create discipline. Terms of office, create restraint. Terms of office, create moderation. Because 5 years is a very small period in one's life. 10 years is a
Absolutely.
very small period in one's life. I remember my daughter Zoe Meet. I used to bath her and dress her. Next thing I take her to school, she
But
says,
now,
Dad, park there. I don't want to be seen with you.
back there, I don't want you near
But
the
this is a
school
little
gate.
girl in respect of which I was here whole world. But kakura manje kane phone kane to komana or whatever. You understand?
Technology.
They don't complain manje kuna mai vacho, but you know, this is not fair. You know. So,
right.
So if you know that I'm president today and tomorrow I'm in the streets, you have restraint. And I've seen it in South Africa.
Absolutely.
I know President Mbeki is a humble man. I know President Motlande. I know President Zuma. President Kama, I can call President Kama a friend.
Yes.
They've restrained. Because they knew they would go. Now Zimbabwe is the only country without a former president. Because Zambia, Kuna Chisano is alive. Gebuza is alive. News is alive.
Mozambique and all
Chisano,
yes. Yeah, Chisano is alive, yes. Yeah.
President News is there.
Yes.
Botswana, Kama is there.
Kama is there. Even this one, you know, who departed is there.
Namibia wanapohamba are there. My former presidents. Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta is there.
Is there. Ours is a
but
strange
if you
one.
had stolen, if Uhuru had stolen, you wouldn't walk in public. They would stone him. And the Muno of Zimbabwe, Pasugaro, Vanotemwa ngematombo. So we need to protect the sacrosanctity. Tofana kuchengetedza bumbiro redu ratakati unouya uchidzoka mubhaibheri chaimo. Adhamu unomuona muna Genesis, but haumuone kunobva kwauya Abraham.
Anopera Genesis imomo,
anopera imomo. Moses unomuona unana Deuteronomy nana Numbers nana Exodus haasiko. Davhida unomuona kunana Samuel kunana Kings nekumapisarema haamo muna zvakazarurwa.
Kana angotarwa anenge akutotarwa seancestor.
Yes, vana prophet Joab, vana prophet Jeremiah unovaona time iyoyo. Hauvaone kuna Mariko, kumakoresia, kuvafeso.
Right.
So the Bible itself, and most of us are Christians, is a doctrine of renewal.
Absolutely.
John the Baptist, unongomona paanongonyorwa mbichana chete, iye achotaura kuti kuchauya mumwe anobhabhatidza nemweya indobhabhatidzwa nemvura, abva atoenda. Iye Yesu wacho haumaoni kakawanda, anongopera kwabva kwauya Paul.
Right.
Paul wacho haumuoni kwakawanda, unozomuona kwaanana John. John is the one who wrote the Revelations.
Yeah. Vauzwa kuzochifamba inhingi nemweya mutsvene, the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. Imi muda kuramba makatachagwinyira ipapo, chagwinyira.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. In fact, it's also science. Data shows that countries that are democratic, that go leadership renewal, are also the most productive. You understand? Don't point Lee Kuan Yew at me, because Lee Kuan Yew was in power from 1965 to 1991 in Singapore, Because you don't understand Lee Kuan Yew, there were changes he was making. There was constant renewal. It's like Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. The team he starts
each
with
season.
Yevana Wadiki and Beckham is not the team he ends up. He's changing players constantly.
Right.
And that's what Lee Kuan Yew was doing. But the bottom line is that you need change.
Change is important.
So we need to protect that constitution. Now, this is the second issue. We can't break this constitution. So that's why we have to defend it. We have to find out because chinhu chatakawirirana isu semazimbabweans.
Yes.
Saka ngatirikoshesei because ibumbiro redu
tisakarinyora
tikarovana. Do you remember kurovana kwataita pa first stakeholders conference muna July of 2010? I remember vana mai Thokozani Kupe vachikandirwa weti pakazoitwa emergency meeting yavamugabe navatsvangirai kuti the first stakeholders iite go through. Second stakeholders ZANU ikaramba devolution.
Yes.
And we walked out. I remember Elton Mangoma and myself, Priscilla Mshonga and Weltman walking out. Karamskadi devolution is a chada. Tonga imon.
A chada. Yes.
It's documented. So tinemalanga.
Invisible.
Vanamonzorava, Nana Mangwana. They played a critical role. See, Monzora, he has done whatever he's done, but Monzora na Mangwana tofana kuwapa sando zavo because they negotiated that constitution. Right. They paid attention to detail. It's not the best constitution in the world. It's not a perfect constitution, but where we are in Zimbabwe, the functional constitution, it needs to be protected. And a lot of people say constitution haina basa, yakafa pakaita 2017. Constitution haisi politics. Yes, politics dzirimo. Constitution iri kubata vanhu, ordinary men and women in their ordinary days. Munhu akasungwa izvezvi anozondofanira koti in 48 hours because the constitution says so. Hazvinei naMnangagwa, hazvinei nepolitics. I'm a human rights lawyer. Ndinomirira vakadzi vakawanda. Tikupinda nawo neconstitution. When I go to the court and say child marriage should be outlawed, I'm using the constitution. And the little girls varikuitwa nhumbu, vari form 3, form 4, havanei naMnangagwa, havanei nechi, they're just ordinary people. When I go to the Constitutional Court and say children should be protected, the age of sexual consent should be 18, it has nothing to do with Mnangagwa. It's ordinary people. So a lot of people think the Constitution is about house signing thing. No, the most important thing in the Constitution is the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is about people, the right to dignity, the right to work, the right to freedom of speech, the right to freedom of expression. And that's why we can't undermine it. That's why we can't dilute it. It's so important.
Right.
It's so important. So we need to protect the constitution. But what if ZANU-PF is pulling a dummy? They actually want to have an election in 2028.
What if?
Yes. So I'm raising this point to say that democratic forces need to be smart, and we need to reorganize. We need to rebuild as a team, my brother. Hakuna muhombe, hakuna mudiki. Hakuna akazodzwa, hakuna asina kuzodzwa. All hands on deck. All hands on deck.
A clarion call to everyone.
All hands on deck. Let's protect Zimbabwe. Let's protect this nation. Let's protect the legacy of Herbert Wilshire Chitema. Let's protect the legacy of Joshua Ngomo. If you were to wake up Joshua Ngomo, who died on the 1st of July in 1999, what would he say today? You probably could say, guys, let's reorganize, let's go back to the bush. I don't believe in going back to the bush, but you would certainly say this is not acceptable. If you to wake up Dabaning story, what would you say? So
this is not acceptable.
We have a liberation, we have an obligation to finish the unfinished business of the liberation struggle. We have to do that. We have to do that. We have to do that. And it doesn't matter whether you are in ZANU-PF or you are outside ZANU-PF. You have what lawyers call a duty of care to Zimbabwe. A duty of care means an obligation to act morally. So if you move per road, and I see it per Twitter, people see my video, Zimbabwe say, Maprisa Sungai Munu, because there's a duty of care to the next citizen.
Absolutely.
So we owe a duty of care to this beautiful country and future generations of Zimbabwe.
Future generations, absolutely, yes. Right.
That's what we have to do.
So you know, so on that aspect, in terms of public mobilization, what do you think the message should be out there, and how should that message be packaged so that it reaches even the remotest of corners in Zimbabwe?
Look, I have no right to tell Zimbabweans what to do. Yeah, but in my corner, I've said kuti chekutanga kuchengetedza constitution. So me and my colleagues are working in an organization called the Constitutional Defense Forum, CDF. Yes. I believe that chakanyanyokoshetsa right now ku protect bumbiro remutemo. CDF yoyo tinenge tichazoshandawo nemamwe maboka nemapati akasiyana. You saw what we tried to do on the 28th of October. Navana Jameson Timba, Navana Agents Gumbo, Navana Job Scala, Navana Jacob Garufu, Nema Church, Nema students, Zinasu, Vana Mkoma Sitrima, Nema veterans. That a press conference, you would have seen one Wanda and so forth.
Right.
So this call for protection and defending of the Constitution must be a national clarion call. Let's work together, even if it's loose. Let's have loose, because at the trust there are legacy issues. But
loose coalition.
Let's have an agreement, and loose coalition yakanakira kuti munhu wezana anouya, munhu wapusa anouya. Then we grow in confidence and we see where it takes out. My fear now is if we have 2028. Because 2028, we can't allow ZANU-PF to have a free pass. That means takuda put all hands on deck, diaspora, $2.7 billion in diaspora remittances. Why can't you go to court and say that there can't be taxation without the representation? Because diaspora remittances are a great tax. Why can't you sponsor a private members bill? Tinema progressive MPs Zakeda Sana Edwin Mshoniwa and a great legislature who can push a private members bill in parliament on diaspora vote. Because now you've got a leverage. Mukavara tape enye $2.7 billion. Chikara chino tataratara chodon. You understand? So, and you guys in the diaspora, you've seen how functional societies work.
Absolutely.
You are in the United Kingdom. When was the last time you saw Keir Starmer pa television, except Muswe Wednesday, question and answer? How Musive? Zvinostogara muZimbabwe kukuti panotanga news dza 8 o'clock unongowana vamunangagwa mukadzi wavo, vana vavo, shamwari dzavo, vamunangagwa mukadzi wavo, vana vavo, shamwari dzavo, for 365 days.
They'll be all up in your faces.
Saka
Right.
Even usina mari kunge inini unotobhadhara Netflix.
You be forced to sure to
Exactly.
pay Netflix to say good come on now. I can't be watching this 24/7.
So this is where we are right now. We are a tired, vulnerable, fragile state because we've been held ransom by a tired, exhausted liberation movement that has lived past itself by death and that never had the capacity and the agenda of transforming our people. And 45 years after independence, we find ourselves in square zero, in the same pothole that we were in 1980. But we are worse off because in 1980 there was hope. Now we don't have hope. We have fatalism. We have hopelessness. 4 million of us, 6 million of us are in the diaspora. A lot of us are found in churches where the prosperity gospel has taken the order of the day, where we are subjected to abuse and lies, but we have no options. So the liberation movement has taken us back because it is driven by three agendas: the entitlement agenda, the impunity agenda, the winner take all scorched earth agenda. That's ZANU-PF for you. You see it in the MPLA in Angola, you see it in Frelimo. In Mozambique, you see it in the ANC in South Africa. So we have to take a stand against authoritarianism, against authoritarian consolidation, and the threat of the establishment of a Mafidi dynasty in Zimbabwe, which is what 2030 is all about.
It's all about. Right. Okay. On that, you know what? There's a lot, that I wanted to cover, but unfortunately, our time is running out, and we have got 10 minutes left, and my time management has been poor because I just got mesmerized, with what we say. But yeah, is it okay if we can go for an extra 30 minutes, and then what I'll do is I will finish it half past, but I'll give. I'm nobody jades like Manchester. And then I'll pay homage, when you come through. So can I allow 20 minutes? Yeah, and then I'll give you the final to just wrap it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Those who are just joining us, we are unpacking we were unpacking Mthuli Ncube's budget, and we delved into the politics of the day. So what we want to do right now is I'm going to allow people to come through and ask questions about the budget, about some of the things that you might not understand. So I'll be bringing people one at a time. You ask your question and you get your response. I'll drop you. I get another one. Etc. So we just need this part of the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, to be so engaging in such a way that we are seeking answers to the questions that we might be having. If anything else other than that, we will not entertain that. So I want to begin by Mkomata Tenda. Mkomata Tenda, welcome to the program. Can I give you this opportunity to ask one question to Honorable Tendai Biti, and we move on to the next. Over to you, Mkomata Tenda. Tatenda, are you there?
I'm here, Uncle Gerard. Sorry. I have one simple question. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
just
Please go
going to
ahead.
get into the train. So it's December. Honorable Beecher.
Oh, Christmas present, bye.
Honorable, as one of your scholars, thank you for being part of the discussion. I hope you'll be returning to the UK soon, and we'll meet again.
Yeah.
My question is, with these current mishaps that Munyanangagwa and his affiliates are doing, how liquid do you think that our parastatal in the government will still remain liquid, and how is the president's office being funded? Where is the funding coming from for his exquisite or luxurious spending on cars and funds that are going through to people not going through the bank, like today's disposal of 500,000 US dollars? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Rabiti, did you get
I
that?
I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, please respond.
So thanks, Mkomata Tenda. Thanks. So as I said before, all the money you see being wasted is coming from the budget. It's coming from treasury. And if you and I tweeted up, I wrote a lengthy tweet about this. If you follow the three things basically. If you read this budget, you will see that the budget by June was only funded by 30%. By September, it was only funded by 55%. It's not being funded. But there are certain ministries, there are certain votes that are already being overfunded. One of them is the Ministry of Public Construction. You're talking about 201%. One of them is the Office of the President and Cabinet, which is over 100%. But there's a slush fund. There's a slush fund which people don't know. The Constitution says, this is the Constitution. The Constitution says that 5% of the budget must be directed towards devolution. So the current budget is a $9.5 billion budget. So 5% of a minimum of 5% of $9.5 billion goes to devolution. But here's the trick. Provincial councils that are supposed to administer these devolution funds don't exist. The government has not enacted the law that will operationalize and actualize provincial councils, even though they were elected in 2023. Every political party actually has provincial councillors. They were there in 2018, but they never took office. They were there in 2013, but they never took office. A second thing, a second omission that is happening is that in terms of the Constitution says 5% must go to devolution. But an act of parliament must be created to cater. This is in terms of section 301 of the Constitution. So it says no less than 5% of the national revenues raised in any financial year should be allocated to the provinces and local authorities as their share in that year. But an act of parliament must provide for the mechanisms. That act of parliament is not there. So you now have a situation where devolution funds are now located in the office of the president. And it's a huge amount of money. The president is now free to allocate it as he wishes. So to give you one most notorious example, there's a company called Geopomona, which collects, which receives the waste. It's owned by a crony called Dilish Guai. It charges $22,000 a day, which is about $7 million a month. This is before it was awarded the contract to physically collect the rubbish in Harare now. City of Harare is no longer doing that. So we don't know how much that is costing us. The city of Harare is not paying directly. It is being paid from devolution funds. So suddenly, which is why I said in that write-up that this government is running a payroll government. So the Mutapa Fund is payroll government. The direct payments by George Guvamatanga, payroll government. Devolution funds, payroll government, because the recipients are not there. There are no provincial councils in Zimbabwe. The Act of Parliament envisaged in Section 301 is not there. So, varikuita madiro a Georgina. Vachidya mari kunge mushongo wemusana. It's a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. Yeah,
so now with the biggest fear with the Mutapa Fund is that we are going to wake up one morning and the country is gone. NRZ is sold and so forth. And my suspicion is that it's going to be sold to the same Gananda Vanakuda Tagire. Which is why it must be put on record that anything done illegally and unconstitutionally remains illegal and unconstitutional. And at a certain point in time, the egg will be unscrambled and people of Zimbabwe will get back their assets. The same applies to these huge concessions that are being given to dubious mining companies. The Chinese, for instance. Manize is sitting on 40 billion metric tons of iron. But no one has ever seen the contract between the government of Zimbabwe and Manize. At a certain stage in time, there must be a review of all these resource contracts and see whether they are done in terms of the law. African Import-Export Bank, Afrexim Bank, is lending money to Zimbabwe. But the Constitution is very clear in Section 327 that all public debt contracted with a foreign body must be approved by Parliament. There is not a single dollar debt of the African Import-Export Bank that has ever been approved by the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So at a certain stage, the Republic of Zimbabwe must be able to say to the African Import-Export Bank, give us back our man. Because you were being paid ultra virus the constitution of Zimbabwe. So, which is why we should document these things. We go to court a lot and lose so many cases, but sometimes the government doesn't know why we are doing it. We are doing it because we're creating a track record.
Right. It's being written. It's being written, documented.
Yeah. It's evidence.
Right.
It's evidence.
It's evidence. I want this also for tomorrow. Yes. I want this also. Yeah, thank you very much, for that. Let me quickly, move on to the next, speaker. I've got Dr. Moses. Dr. Moses, do you want to come through with your question?
Yes, thank you, Uncle Jeff. Thank you, Honorable Biti. I appreciate your presentation. My main question relates to the way forward, because you rightly stated that we need all hands on the deck. My question is that what are the prospects of having all hands on the deck, given what is happening in the opposition now, of course, in parliament? And you also, for example, said that defending the constitution is the most important thing at the moment. But I got to think about what Advocate Nelson Chamisa said. He said that we don't have a constitution to defend. We only have to defend the nation. We don't have a constitution. So looking at all those dynamics within the opposition, you look at what is happening in Senator Ngonzora's party and all those fights and conflicts, the ideas that this one is a sellout, that one is sellout. What are the prospects of bringing all the hands on the deck, Honorable Biti? Thank you.
Right. Honorable Biti, over to you.
Yeah. Takawanda 316 million. So those who have been actors, including myself, on the political scene, are a tiny minority. So the mistakes of the tiny minority, the leaders of the tiny minority, cannot stop us from fulfilling a historical obligation. And the historical obligation of this generation is to protect our constitution, is to protect our nationhood, is to fulfill the unfinished business of the liberation struggle. So all hands on deck. And Doc, you ask me, I'm not a god, and I don't want to be a god. This should be an obligation on everyone. Each one of us has an obligation to act. We must provide the agency, AGENCY. And we must recognize that the situation is urgent, URGENT.
Yes.
So agency and agency, agency and agency. Everyone has a duty to come forward. Takazara ku diaspora, takazara ku South Africa, takazara ku Botswana. Ndakabhenda kune imwe Latin American country. I was shocked Sao Paulo to see how many Zimbabweans were there.
Mutaura iye vachakubvunza ari kuSouth America.
Can you imagine? So hakuna mumwe munhu anofunga kuti achakusakurira munda. Ngatisakurei tese. And I want to emphasize it's about Team Zimbabwe. Hakuna akazodzwa oro anoti ndakazodzwa. It's about Team Zimbabwe. Hakuna anonzi akafunda kana kuti haana kufunda. Hakuna anonzi ane ma-ideas kana kuti haana ma-ideas. It's teamwork. The best teams in the world are not the ones with the best players. France was the best team at the 2010 World Cup. It didn't win the World Cup. The two teams that were in the final, Spain and Holland, have the best collective team. That's what we need. We need Team Zimbabwe. Then we set rules for ourselves. Our constitution, we must be accountable to ourselves. And as I keep on saying, we must build this new reconfiguration based on mistrust. Kuti kaisa jedza anomuka mangwana achiti ibvai mese. Because the problem is we are naive. We build organizations on trust. The one institution you build on trust is the marriage institution. But I'm a lawyer. I know of people who, after they've said I do, manerato chao arutobvisira hembe dzake some certain person.
I think I know I don't.
The only contract which is not built on trust is the contract of employment, because I have to ask my leave yangu yakamira sei. I have to ask you 3 months notice. I have to ask about my salary. I have to ask you about maternity leave. So I don't trust you, the employer. You, the employer, have to say you start work at 7 o'clock. Ukadhakwa ndokudzinga, ukamba ndokudzinga. It becomes an injury.
Right.
That's why we have constitutions. Constitutions are built because inherently the state and citizens don't trust power. So because we don't trust power, we seek a point of consensus based on the fact that we don't trust you. So when we put term limits, we are basically saying we don't trust you. Mess us up in 5 years and you go. Absolutely. When we say we'll vote you and take you out after 5 years, we're basically saying we don't trust you. So the Magna Carta and modern constitutions are built on mistrust. And why mistrust? Because before these modern constitutions, there was feudalism and monarchs. King Henry VIII. I'm a student of our history. The 7 Mutapa ainzi changamire mabvudzi oro chibata matosi. Chibata matosi airara even nehanzvadzi. You understand? Mabvudzi. Ndiye akazara vana gono vana moyo amitisa mwana wemunin'ina wake. So the modern state emerges.
What an interesting piece of information.
Emerges as a reaction to abuse of power by an unaccountable monarch. We don't trust power. The French Revolution was all about not trusting power. Mary Antoinette nemurume wakainzi Charles vakadimburwa musoro muParis. Vanhu vakatoma Bastille musi wa4 July 1789. We don't trust power.
We don't trust power. Thank you very much. On that note, let me go on to Nkomadani. Nkomadani, how are you doing? Thank you very much for coming. Your question.
Thank you, Uncle, and great to see you, Honorable. If I may, it's a little bit of an abstract question, but people have, when we hear these numbers on in the budget, a billion, what do you buy with a billion? We don't see that. But what my question is, with regards to Zimbabwe's natural resources and human capital, what does a well-functioning Zimbabwe look like with regards to the kind of resources, human and natural resources that we have? Because when we hear our GDP is 20 billion and so forth, I'm a lawyer like you, but my economics is absolutely horrible. So, but anyway, when someone hears $22 billion GDP, so no one understands that. Can you please elaborate or explain to us if Zimbabwe was to reach the place that you are talking about, well managed, with a great budget, with a great political order and economic order, what kind of numbers and results are we looking at as Zimbabweans? What does that mean to the ordinary person? If you understand my question, it's a bit abstract, but then I don't know if you can help us with that so we can better understand. What kind of a budget would be great for us?
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Nkomadani. Over to you, Honorable.
Let's not concentrate. Ngatiregere kunyengerwa nema numbers, nema figures. Kuti nyika inzia nyika for the country to move forward, it must concentrate on transforming the lives of its people. I think we saw glimpses of that during the GNU. Is my life qualitatively changing? Before we get the obsession of figures of 20 billion, or 50 billion, of 60 billion. And when we transform the lives of our people to be told, could I'm 5 billion, or I'm 6 billion, or I'm 100 billion, their own lives they've qualitatively changed. So what does this mean? It means that the state must concentrate on the citizen. Where do you look at the citizen? The citizen needs employment. Are we growing economy? Are we growing jobs? Can you imagine the pain you sell mombe dzako mwana hana basa, mwana akutengesa majuice card, mwana akunoita chikorokoza, mwana akuita cross border, mwana akunoita waiter kuCape Town, mwana akuita chipfambi, mwana akuswera achimwa guka, achimwa mutoriro. A lot of those vices are coming because our people are intelligent people, but they are underemployed, they are unemployed. And the jobs are the nexus between growth and development. You can't say we have $20 billion when the jobs that justify a $20 billion economy are not there. In development economics, developmental economists will tell you that the nexus, the connection between a growing economy is jobs and the economy. That's why in America, they publish monthly employment figures, because employment figures reflect the size, health, and temperature of that economy. Number two, what is the social investment in schools? We struggle here when we say education must be free. But you guys who are in the diaspora in America know what public education is. If you have to send a child to private school in America or in Britain, it's just pure vanity. Because the public education system works. Number three, so connected to that is health. There's an NHS in the United Kingdom. There is equivalent of NHS in Sweden, in Denmark, in Holland, in Norway, in Scandinavia, because health is so important. Social services, do we look after our elders? Here in Zimbabwe, the elders are looked after by the family. But this man has been working, this woman has been working. It's the responsibility of the state. How does the state protect here? The state protects this person's pension. We have decimated pensions countless of times. The state ensures that this person has adequate housing and accommodation. These are the things that you measure development. These are the things that then there's gross capital formation. Because the quality of life now depends on what the government has done to invest in gross capital formation. What is the state of the roads? What is the state of the transport sector? I dread to go to Bulawayo and drive 450 kilometers. You live in the United Kingdom, you stay in Manchester. To go to London can take you 3 hours. Can take you 2 hours. In the next few years, Concorde is coming back. It will be 3 hours between London and New York. There's a Eurostar that travels in under 1 hour, 2 hours from Paddington Station to Charles de Gaulle Station in Paris. That's the quality of life. I've lived in Holland. There are trains that come at strange hours, 7:37, 7:39 from Amstel kumsoro kuGermany achienda to The Hague, achienda kuAmsterdam. That's the quality of life. Magesi ariko here, mvura iriko here, central heating iriko here. I spent my life, and I'm a professional. Generator riri kusenza here, magesi ari kusenza here, bore riri kusenza here.
Right.
Motikari hadipedzi 2 weeks before motikari yaponja because yapinda muchipoto.
Yeah.
But I mean the urban area. What
And
about
on the
people
road,
in the rural areas? 70% of the population is in the rural areas. 69% of our people don't have access to covered ablution. They still use the bush as toilet.
45 years after
45 years
independence.
after independence. Wosangana ninyoka ikoko. So if you go kuna mai Ezra, kwachidya makuni, havanei nekuti $20 billion, but ukavaisira tara, ukavaisira chikoro chepadhuze, ukavaisira magesi, ukavaisira chigayo padhuze, ukavaisira kasupermarket padhuze, ukavaisira clinic padhuze, wachinja. And if you do that now, remember, when you construct, you're growing the cake. Keynesian economics, there was a man called John Maynard Keynes. He was a public economist. And his answer was that the state should play a Bonapartist role and invest so much in public expenditure programs. During the Great Depression of America, they proposed what was called a New Deal under President Roosevelt. This economy is shrunk. This economy is in a recession. What do? We construct ourselves out of the crisis. They build oil pipes. They build highways. Because when you build a highway, you're going to employ a person. Saka mai vari parod vaneka restaurant kari kutengesa sadza kumabhiridha basa ratopo. Mai vaneka ini kahotera kari kuchengeta construction. America yakakura zvamunoziva ini. Thousands and thousands of kilometers. But ari kugadzira tara, ari kugadzira zvimamishina zvinotsika marodhi, macreate employment. So under those circumstances, people don't ask about GDP because they watch their lives change. I've invested.
They don't even want to know what that figure stands for.
I'm a board location in Mkoba. So my father died in 2000.
May so rest in peace.
Between 1980 and 2000, I think ndakaenda kumusha kwedu ka 2 or ka 3. So when my father died, I started kuvarota so vachiti, but why are you not building kumusha? So I went and did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I went and did that. So I built paruzeva, ndikaisa magetsi, ndikaita sei, ndikadhodzesa magetsi, ndikaisa bore, clean water and so forth. Ndinoita zvenguruve, I'm a pig farmer and so forth.
Oh yes.
It is transforming the community. It is transforming the community because people can just basic things, electricity, solar power, etc.
It's changing
Like
lives.
the instruments of so let's not concentrate on form. Let's concentrate on substance. Are we able to transform the lives of our people?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, Ru, do you want to come in? We are almost, getting to the end, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to bring in Ru. We need a female voice, into this conversation. Ru, can you come through with your question, please?
Thank you, Uncle Jed. Hope you're well. Thank you, Honorable Biti. It's been a very inciting conversation, and I wanted to just hopefully sort of hone in on this budget, because when I'm trying to understand it a little bit more, especially thinking through the agriculture allocation, where it seems like there's been more of an allocation that's been put towards agriculture, but I wanted to make it more specific to an organization right now called Kotco. They have been bought, or rather the government now has 51% shares, meaning they own majority of this organization. But on the side, people are complaining suppliers are not being paid. Everything looks all glossy on the outside, but it seems that the government is not paying their bills. What can citizens do when it comes to things like this? Because even employees of Kotco are not getting paid. And again, we see that this allocation is being put towards agriculture, but then the reflection using this case study of Kotco is not reflecting in everyday Zimbabwean lives. So yeah, just interested on your thoughts in terms of what can citizens do to challenge some of these things, because I think these are everyday issues that people are really facing on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Biti.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, which gives me the opportunity on touching on something that I didn't speak about.
Right.
Cotton farmers in this country are many. So if you go to places like Gokwe, it's cotton territory. But the lives of our compatriots in those places have not changed at all. Gokwe in the Midlands has got the worst rates of teenage pregnancies and school dropouts, because young kids leave school to go and do cotton marketing. But they're cotton agriculture, cotton plant. But their lives have not transformed. But in the old days of the Cotton Marketing Board, their lot and lives were much, much better. Because the Cotton Marketing Board would assist them, provide them with seed. The Cotton Marketing Board, like the GMB, will buy their cotton at a pre-announced price. But with the liberalization of this sector and the commercialization of the Cotton Marketing Board into the Cotton Marketing Company, things have changed, because the Cotton Marketing Company has no capacity to finance the cotton crop. It's now left to contract farming. And there are huge challenges there. These contractors come and give you seeds and chemicals. The price of cotton is dependent on the Liverpool Cotton Board. It's still like colonialism. It's determined in Liverpool. So what happens now with these companies? They give you a set price. If the price of cotton is good internationally, they will pay you what you agreed, but they harvest the profit. If the price of cotton is below their margins and is poor, they undercut you to recover their outlay in you. So a genuine partnership would have said, if we do well, we should share the excess. If we don't do well, you, the company, must also suffer a loss. But here's the problem. Cotton farmers are not collectivized. Most of them are peasant farmers in Gokwe. They have no voice at all. But the biggest problem is a structural one. The bulk of cotton in Zimbabwe, like the bulk of gold in Zimbabwe, like the bulk of tobacco in Zimbabwe, like all the lithium in Zimbabwe, is still exported overseas. So the accumulation model in this country still remains that of exporting raw products, whether it's lithium, whether it's gold, whether it's diamonds, whether it's tobacco, whether it's cotton. 45 years after independence, we've failed to alter the accumulation model. We've failed to create value chains. We've failed to industrialize and to create beneficiation. Not so long ago, we had a company in Chegutu called David Whitehead. It used to manufacture the world's top Van Huysen shirts. It was a center of value addition, towels, bed sheets, linen. People used to fly from London to come and buy linen shirts, sheets at David Whitehead. It's closed. It's a shadow of what it was. Thousands of employees were laid off. The government of the day did not have the mindset of protecting David Whitehead against cheap imports from China. The government of the day did not have the wisdom of protecting our cotton value chain. There was a company called Melin in Bulawayo.
Melin, I know
that
it is.
Also produced top sheets, top towels, top linen. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the issue goes beyond the immediate challenges that these farmers are facing. The issue is structural. The issue relates to the obligation to transform the nature of this economy. If you were to wake up the bandit called Sissy John Rhodes, who is lying on a beautiful hill called Matopos in Bulawayo, you will not get shocked by the structure of the economy. The structure of the economy has not changed at all. It's still based on raw extraction and exporting raw products. 90% of our tobacco goes out of the country. 100% of our lithium goes out of the country. Our copper, our chrome. If you go to Forbes border post in Mutare, they are snaking queues that are trying to get to Mozambique that are now snaking into the Vumba, carrying raw products.
Wow.
If you go to Bind Bridge, there are now warehouses on the coastline, warehousing Zimbabwean minerals that are waiting to go on big ships to go to Southeast Asia. This is 45 years after independence. So we remain innocent bystanders to our economy, because the bulk of this economy is being exported out. And we are losing out because of illicit financial transfers. Zimbabwe loses out annually $3 billion annually in illicit financial flows. If we were to plug that gap, we don't need foreign direct investment. We don't need foreign aid. If we stop these huge companies, I won't mention them by name, that are stealing from this country. Take producers of platinum. Where platinum is a metal. When you iron and dig platinum, there is gold, there is lithium, there is palladium, there is rhodium. There is no platinum refinery in Zimbabwe. If you read the results of Zimplats, it was boasting that we are building this melting plant. We've spent 2.8 billion. There is one thing that they won't do is to build a refinery here. So tons and tons of soil go to South Africa to be refined. When they're in South Africa, we don't know what gold is extracted from a ton of soil, what rhodium, what palladium, what nickel. We are just suddenly told, we got this.
So they just take everything with the soil.
But they say at Bindura nickel mine, there is a refinery, because remember, nickel is a metal. It's like platinum. Because when you extract, you are basically extracting using different temperatures and different scientific processes. Hello? Yeah,
so I can hear you. Right, I can hear you.
That soil gives you nickel. At a certain temperature, that soil gives you palladium. At a certain temperature, that soil gives you rhodium.
Also, you mean in a lump of soil, you can get all these minerals, being extracted.
And we have 504 kilometers
of that soil.
It's called the Great Dyke.
Oh, yes.
It's called the Great Dyke. But it's being wasted away in the Zigananda. Tine Zigananda zviri muno arava. Tugananda twetwe. Zigananda hatisi multinational corporations.
Shangwiti hove dzemugungwa. Yeah.
Vanakalidzotya.
Biti, we can go on and on and on. I want to
kutonga tidama 2 terms. Hatisi kutonga. Tozotanga kutonga mushwatati Zimplats is now working for Zimbabwe. Rio Tinto is now working for Zimbabwe.
Honorable, this needed more than 2 hours. I stole 30 minutes from you, and we are now at 2.5 hours. But I want to do justice to you, because you've given me those, and I want us to come to a close.
Yes,
Yes, I want to come us to a close. Guys, I want to apologize to those who are still requesting. I'll arrange again with Honorable Biti so that we can have a part 2 of this. I think that would be great, Honorable, to have a part 2 of this, so that we can go into a conversation that begins with the question and answer session.
Yeah, but later.
Unless you want to continue for another 30 minutes.
No. There's domestic violence in Varumu.
Right. Anyway, in wrapping up, thank you very much, for this. And in wrapping up, I just want you to end this with a message of hope. What message of hope or practical steps would you share with us Zimbabweans who are looking for a more stable and a stronger democratic future?
Yeah, we live in a very uncertain world. A world that has gone very cruel, very rough, very narcissist. Black people are on the defense. We are not wanted in America. We are not wanted in the UK. We are not wanted in Europe. This is our home, Africa. We have a duty and obligation to make it better, to make it ours. We have to have a second or third liberation in which we liberate it from autocrats, from kleptocrats, from thieves, from Zimbabwe, from Uganda. So I appeal to fellow Zimbabweans that let's put all hands on deck. Let's protect Zimbabwe. And protecting Zimbabwe starts and begins with the Constitution. It starts and begins with our institutions, the judiciary, for instance, the media, for instance, our fourth generation commissions, the Human Rights Commission, the Anti-Corruption Commission, our national institutions, the army, for instance, it doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to the people of Zimbabwe. Our intelligence people, they don't belong to anyone. They belong to the people of Zimbabwe. Our police force, our prison service, they don't belong to anyone. They belong to Zimbabwe. This is an extremely beautiful country. Let's save it. Let's save Zimbabwe. And all hands on deck. There is no hakuna mkuru, hakuna mdiki, hakuna akazodzwa, hakuna asina kuzodzwa. Tese takafanana. Let's do that, and we can do it.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This concludes our discussion with Honorable Tendai Biti. We covered the 2026 budget and the role of opposition politics in shaping Zimbabwe's future. These conversations that we have, ladies and gentlemen, are not just about, talking about numbers or talking about party lines, talking about opposition politics in terms of, political parties. But they speak to everyday realities, the realities that we face as citizens, and the choices that must define our path forward. This is what motivates me. This is what should be motivating you to be part and parcel of this conversation. So as we go along, ladies and gentlemen, I am encouraging each and every one of you. We got the maximum registered devices that we got to today was 435, and I am appealing those that were listening to through those devices. I'm appealing to you and encouraging you to reflect on what has been said here, what has been shared today, and I am appealing to you one more time to join the conversation, to join the dialogues, and continue engaging with us on these platforms so that we can unpack the issues that matter most, the issues that strike to the heart of what you need, you as a Zimbabwean citizen. We will never mortgage this conversation to anyone, but it is a conversation that we need to have, and it is a conversation that requires your participation as Zimbabweans, as citizens of Zimbabwe. You have heard what the Honorable said. You have heard the conversation on the budget. You have heard what Honorable Tendai Biti has said on the way forward. This right here is a fight that must be embraced by every forward-looking and every forward-thinking Zimbabwean. Forget about anything else. Forget about everything else. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that we are the Zimbabweans. There's no other who can take this challenge on. But also remember Kuti, when we are having, these conversations, and when we are having these, dialogues with the people, that matter, what needs to be the focus? The focus has to be Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe is one, and Zimbabwe is our own country. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. And I look forward to be bringing in more voices and perspectives that can help eliminate this Zimbabwean journey. Tendai Biti, thank you very much, and good night.
Zikomo.